Ava. I was just about to start. When is she leaving?
She should leave at some event at 8. I think we should finish by then, but anyway, yeah, you just don't ask second question to her and then say that if she, I will ask her to meet you somehow and you can say that she can stay. Thank you.
Okay. No problem. Great. Okay, good evening, everyone. As we're getting our first speakers settled down, I'd like to present myself. My name is Monique Mari. I am a Technology Executive Committee member, and I am very pleased to welcome you to this event, Fostering Innovation Through Collaborative Climate Technology Research Development and Demonstration. So without further ado, I just want to mention that the aim of this event is to raise awareness on the importance of collaborative climate technology research and development to implement countries' NDCs and other mitigation and adaptation strategies by disseminating the outputs and activities of the technology mechanism. We also aim here to identify ways to increase the effective participation of developing countries' parties in collaborative climate technology research and development. And finally, we hope that we get to encourage country parties to participate in collaborative climate technology in research and development in line with national needs and capacities. And with that, I will invite our speakers, Daniele Violetti and Erwin Rose, to welcome, to give us the welcoming words.
Thank you. Good afternoon, good evening to all of you. Very nice to see so many people taking the time to join us for this technology mechanism side event on fostering innovation. I think the origin of this conversation, of course, goes back to the Article 10.5 of the Paris Agreement, which speaks clearly directly on the importance on innovation and how critical it is to advance development and transfer of technology. And we know that fostering innovation can be done through various means, one of which is definitely effective international collaborative approaches to enhance climate technology research, development, and demonstration. The IEA tells us that more than 50% of technical innovations needed to reach net zero by 2050 either do not exist or are not on track. So this is clearly a situation where acceleration of RD&D is critical in some sectors and absolutely imperative to ensure that these technology gaps are closed on time towards the goals of the Paris Agreement. So we believe that RD&D collaboration can and should enable each region and country to develop the capabilities to find their own path towards low-emission, climate-resilient society and economy. Action in the context of the process, our climate change process, and within the technology mechanism has done a lot of work in terms of advancing consideration on technology matters. And this year, the Technology Executive Committee, in collaboration with the Future Climate Architect, have conducted the survey of the future needs of RD&D with the objective to achieve a comprehensive overview of the current and future global RD&D needs to fundamentally decarbonize human activity in line with the targets of the Paris Agreement. So this survey is a good basis for future in-depth work in this direction, and the TEC has decided to continue exploring more RD&D need in this direction. So as the TEC CTCN are embarking in this new chapter of this work in the context of the technology mechanism and the joint work program, there are so many opportunities now to have this type of conversation, and all the goal is to have higher ambition and accelerated action. So in closing, of course, on the side of the NSCC Secretariat, the technology team, we remain at the disposal of all stakeholders in these discussions, and hopefully we are able to answer also questions and engage with many of you in follow-ups on this event as well. So I'll stop here. Thank you again, and I wish you a fruitful discussion. Thank you.
Can everyone hear me in the back? Is the mic on? Okay. Danielle Violetti, Senior Director of Programs Coordination of the UNFCCC Secretariat. IPCC Vice Chair Ladislas Changa. Distinguished panelists from various organizations, CTCN Advisory Board and TEC members, ladies and gentlemen. It is my pleasure to deliver the opening remarks as Chair of the CTCN Advisory Board at this side event entitled Fostering Innovation Through Collaborative Technology, Research, Development, and Demonstration, RD&D. We are here today with the objective of identifying ways to enhance the participation of developing countries in collaborative climate technology, RD&D. The findings of the IPCC Climate Change 2023 Synthesis Report underscore that international collaboration stands as a linchpin in pursuit of ambitious climate change mitigation, adaptation, and resilient development. The report emphasizes that bolstering global cooperation in areas such as finance, technology, and capacity building are paramount. It further contends that expediting the development and deployment of cutting-edge technologies can serve as a catalyst, propelling us towards greater ambition in both mitigation and adaptation. This comprehensive approach aims to redirect our development pathways, steering them towards sustainability. Under the innovation theme of the Paris Agreement framework, new collaborative approaches to climate technology, RD&D, are considered as a way to foster innovation. The Technology Executive Committee, in collaboration with the Climate Technology Center and Network, published a report entitled Compilation of Good Practices and Lessons Learned on International Collaborative Research, Development, and Demonstration Initiatives of Climate Technology, and Executive Summaries for Targeted Audience on International Collaborative RD&D in 2021. Today, we will unveil the outcomes of the 2023 survey on challenges, enabling environments, and potential areas in collaborative RD&D. It is worth noting that the recently inaugurated CTCN Partnership and Liaison Office in Korea has been actively engaged in international RD&D collaboration. Functioning as a center of excellence in collaborative RD&D, this office plays a pivotal role in fostering cooperation and driving advancements in research and development globally. CTCN has supported implementation of several technical assistance projects in sectors such as the establishment of local climate information system for climate change adaptation in Cambodia, ocean energy technical pre-feasibility study in Nauru, application of the gravity-driven membrane technology for supplying sustainable drinking water to rural communities in Cambodia, upscaling investments to achieve NDC energy efficiency goals in the building sector in Thailand, water and energy efficiency and self-generation plan in the Solomon Islands, and modernization of the district heating system and improvement of energy efficiency of buildings in Serbia. And those are just a few examples. I'm sure that it's timely and significant for the technology mechanism to host this side event to disseminate the results of the work on collaborative RD&D based on requests from the parties and to promote international RD&D collaboration to catalyze climate technology innovation. I look forward to a productive panel discussion that delves into the wealth of experience, best practices, and lessons learned from the execution of international collaborative RD&D across diverse sectors. Our aim is to gain valuable insight into future endeavors concerning collaborative RD&D. This discussion will explore avenues to facilitate international collaboration, encompassing North-South and South-South partnerships, as well as twinning arrangements. The goal is to bolster the effective participation of developing country parties in collaborative technology RD&D and contributing to the successful implementation of nationally determined contributions and thus realizing the objectives of the Paris Agreement. Thank you again for inviting me to speak, and to our distinguished speakers and panelists for your contributions to this effort, as well as to broader activities by the TEC and CTCN working with the secretariats in preparation for this event.
Thank you both for these welcoming words. I'll now invite Mr. Ladislao Changa, IPCC Vice Chair, to set the scene on IPCC's work of innovation to drive climate action.
Thank you very much. Let me start by expressing my appreciation for being invited to deliver some few remarks on behalf of IPCC. We have just completed the 6th assessment cycle, delivering a very comprehensive, challenging, intense, but very productive cycle with a provision of 3 assessment reports, 3 working group reports, a methodology report, and a census report. This was one of the comprehensive cycles in the history of the IPCC, but also challenging in terms of the fact that we have been very significantly impacted by COVID. With that came innovation and technology. We are able to finalize and finish the assessment because of technology, because of innovation. The 3 special reports that were produced in the 6th assessment cycle include the special report on global warming on 1.5, the special report on climate change and land, but also the special report on ocean cryosphere in a changing climate. As I have noted, the IPCC also produced a working group report, working group 1 report, physical science basis, but also working group 2 report, which is focusing on adaptation, impact, and vulnerability, and also working group 3 report focusing on mitigation, and a methodology report. The 6th assessment cycle had some key findings that I would like, on the achievement that I would like to share with you that is connected to technology and innovation. The 6th assessment report and cycle was very rigorous in terms of scientific information, provided robust assessment across climate dimension, offering comprehensive insight from updated research. But also it had deeper impact in terms of understanding, highlighted climate change effect on regional perspective, ecosystem, and sectors, urging prompt action. The IPCC also, in the 6th assessment cycle, developed interactive atlas, which is also a very good innovation, introducing dynamic and visually engaging platform, which allows for interactive exploration and understanding of climate-related information. But as I've noted, that it also contributed to increasing focus on regional perspective, which is critical for informing adaptation, and also increased focus on mitigation solution. So there are numerous achievements that has been done in the 6th assessment cycle. Now, in the 7th assessment cycle that we are just starting, the IPCC chair have articulated 3 major priorities that we are going to pay much attention in the next 7 years. Mm-hmm. Number 1 is to strengthen inclusivity and diversity. And I'm very glad here we are mentioning and we are focusing on strengthening the participation of developing countries in the process. And that is something that IPCC also is looking forward to do that. And in terms of inclusivity, it also relates to enhancing the participation of young scientists in the process. Young people who are most vulnerable. I'm just coming from the event which is focusing on from most vulnerable to most valuable. So in the 7th assessment cycle, we look forward to using all the innovation and creativity to ensure that we strengthen the participation of young people in the IPCC process, including in the generation of knowledge, but also in the assessment of the IPCC report and in dissemination of the IPCC product. The other priority include enhancing relevance of IPCC report to policymakers. And the third one is ensuring that output reflect the best available science. So these are the three key priorities that the IPCC chair and we are going to implement in the next 7 years. In the preparation of the seventh assessment cycle planning, the IPCC Secretariat conducted a survey among IPCC focal points to gather views on the focus of the seventh assessment cycle, particularly on what kind of product do the government want to be produced, and including the format at which the government would like to get the information. And majority of the government are still emphasizing on the 3 working group report and also a census report and some few special reports. So this is going to be decided in January, where the panel will meet to deliberate on the product for the 7th assessment cycle. I would like to once again end by emphasizing on the importance of international collaboration in terms of enhancing innovation and sharing knowledge, and particularly ensuring that no one is left behind. And in this particular case, enhancing and ensuring that developing countries are also strengthened in their participation. I thank you for your attention.
Thank you to all 3 speakers for the welcoming words and setting the scene. You are free to leave now the stage, so you're not held hostage there. So now that we have a bit of a setting, the next person that I will invite here is Mr. Peter Schneering. Hopefully I said that right. Did I say it good? Okay, I'll do it again then. Mr. Peter Schneering, the founder of Future Clean Tech Architects, will have a presentation on the survey results of future needs of climate technology on research and development. So you can go to, yeah. You can go, oh, or you want him to have, you can come here then. I will exit. There we go. You need the clicker?
If possible, yeah.
Yes.
Thank you so much. Thank you for the kind introduction. Distinguished chairman and panelists of this event, esteemed representatives of the United Nations and the IPCC and other organizations. Ladies and gentlemen, it's my pleasure to be invited. My name is Peter Schneering. As our kind moderator already mentioned, I'm founder of Future Clean Tech Architects. We're a climate innovation think tank, a non-profit organization targeting only the hardest to abate sectors and innovation in these sectors. And about 2.5 years ago, we conducted a survey on the future needs in RD&D by ourselves. It was published through the World Economic Forum's blog series, and we've been discussing ever since. And when we wanted to do a follow-up early this year and were in discussion with members of the Technology Executive Committee, we appreciated that TEC members offered to collaborate on this, supported at certain points. And I would kindly ask you to listen to some of the results, some of the methodology we've applied. It was a new type of project for us. It can be developed further. But first of all, I'd like to show you what we did. The survey was, as I said, conducted in collaboration with the TEC. It was adapted to reflect certain elements of the rolling work plan of the TEC. And it focused, as you can see on this slide, it targeted to identify the strongest short and long-term RD&D needs. It included 12 mitigation technologies, 6 on the mature side, 6 on the early stage side, we also went with definitions of the IPCC, of course, and some of these elements. We wanted to determine the key stakeholders that are critical for accelerating cleantech RD&D, and finally, the results were supposed to serve as a starting point to then embark into further areas of analysis. Beyond that, I should stress, maybe before I show this, I should stress it's focusing on mitigation, and we in particular wanted to identify the barriers, the enablers, the key stakeholders, and what we in the tech scene call the valleys of death. The valleys of death are supposed to be the periods alongside the innovation stages where new ideas, entrepreneurs, startups, scale-ups are most likely to fail. We jointly disseminated this survey to key stakeholders. I'll give you an overview, and I'm pleased to share some of the results at a high level, only minding the time because I intend on keeping the time limit that was set. Okay. Looking at the participants, it was a very comprehensive survey because in our joint development of it, we decided we ask any of the participants once on the situation in his or her own country and on the global situation. So these were always separate answers. There were open answer questions, there were multiple choice questions, there were ranking questions, and oftentimes it was possible to give up to 3 answers in order to prioritize certain segments. You can see that a little more than 300 participants completed it, took part in it. We had a completion rate of about 75%, and on average, participants spent about 20 minutes on the survey, which is very long, as you know, if you are occasionally asked to participate in surveys. Okay, I'd like to run you through some of the results that we've come across, and I need to look down on the screen here sometimes, so apologies. We asked about the general assessment on the state of the RD&D environment globally and in the respective country. And the global RD&D environment is seen as slightly favorable. 75% of respondents in developed economies rate the RD&D environments higher than neutral, as opposed to, and here's the difference, to just 31% in developing economies. You can see the average results here, and I think you can see quite nicely if you compare, the figure 4 is below these bars, where you see for developing economies, the majority is below the average or below the medium, and for developed economies, the RD&D environment is seen slightly favorable, slightly positive. Coming to the stakeholders, we had the overwhelming result that the public sector is by far the most important stakeholder in accelerating RD&D. That might not come as a surprise. We found some of the results very interesting nonetheless. I don't want to read it all out to you now, but if you look at the financial support as a key element in successful RD&D, the economic support and institutional challenges, the lack of economic support and the institutional challenges as some of the strongest roadblocks. We have visualized this for other meetings as well. It comes as a surprise that it's both the most important stakeholder and the biggest roadblock at the same time. So it plays an absolutely crucial role. And we've summarized it in terms of the main asks to what role should the public sector play in advancing RD&D. Multiple answers, up to 3 answers were possible. Number 1, provide long-term stability. We can relate to that a lot, working with innovators that are CapEx heavy, so long innovation cycles that just need stability in the framework. Otherwise, they won't find the investments. Second point, somebody coming from Germany like myself can relate to this very, very much, is reduced bureaucracy. Bureaucracy, especially in Europe, our teams scattered across Europe, is a huge obstacle, a huge roadblock. And finally, early stage financing is another key ask for the public sector. Let's move to the valleys of death briefly. Imagine the innovation stages pictured at the bottom of this, sort of starting at the bottom left, going up to the top right. If you were to attribute TRLs, it would go from 0 or 1 to 9, basically. And you can see that globally, the largest risk of failure, or the perceived highest risk to a startup, a scale-up, a technology, is in relatively late stage in the large-scale deployment. This is very much in line with what we experience every day. We call it oftentimes the first of its kind application. Rolling a technology out into real-life industry is, especially for the capital-intensive industries, a very difficult part. Another interesting finding when comparing developing and developed economies is that the risk of failure, the perceived risk of failure, differs. It's significantly earlier in the developing economies, and later in the developed economies. What you saw previously were aggregated figures of the two results. Briefly touching upon the barriers. The three biggest roadblocks in advancing the development of critical breakthrough climate technology, globally and in your country specifically, are institutional, economic, and socio-cultural. Technological coming significantly later. And as I see people taking pictures, which I appreciate a lot, I guess we will be able to provide the slides. I see Barbara nodding, thank you very much. So we'll be happy to provide the slides, of course. Again, I would like to point to a difference between developed and developing countries. If you take a look at the chart on the right-hand side, the perceived technological roadblock is significantly higher in developing economies compared to developed economies, where you see the economic, the institutional and socio-cultural barriers perceived higher. And again, here we try to distill this takeaway into a visualization that is, of course, simplified, but what we found is that with development and deployment comes a change in the type of barriers. And we believe this is very much in line with a comprehensive view of this development that's needed. It's not just a question of financing and the technology, but it's also a question of taking any concerns on this, and also the societal concerns and the barriers that come socioculturally. Again, we see it strongly in Europe right now, where transmission grids will have to be built, where there's more and more onshore wind turbines that need to be built. All these kind of things are aspects that are in line with this finding. Let's briefly look at the established technologies, so finding on the mature type of technologies that we've looked at. You can see a difference. First of all, the blue bars are the 2030 results, while the white bars are the 2035 results. And you can see a focused left hand is developing economies, right hand is the developed economies. You can see a stronger emphasis on fuel switching in industry, for example, in the developed economies, while you see a significantly stronger emphasis on technologies like solar energy in the developing economies. Also, we don't have the time now, but it's interesting to see the difference between 2030 and 2035. Early stage technology priorities. Another finding I'd like to summarize briefly is we see both for 2035 and 2030 a pretty clear focus on storage, with industrial processes following then. Again, early stage compared developed versus developing economies. If we look at this, you can see electricity generation ranked higher in developing economies, whereas industrial processes ranked higher in developed economies. Storage was a very clear focus in the answers of participants. And we found that across the board in any types of answers. And what we then did was also, which we would like to, what I'd like to draw your attention to on the right side, we excluded, because participants had to give their affiliation, industry, background. So we deleted any participants, and there were quite a number, who collaborate with storage, because we thought, okay, there's a bias. We had maybe too many people who participated that develop storage technologies, work in programs on storage technologies. So we took them out, but even if we take them out, it remains number one answer for 2030 and 2035. We had these open answers, as we called them, and here we found that thermal storage was often mentioned. When thinking of storage, you probably think of electricity, and it's for families, electricity storage from electrochemical to mechanical to chemical, but also the storage of heat, of thermal energy was stressed again and again. Some key takeaways, and then I'm done. I mentioned energy storage as a priority across all countries and sectors. The public sector as a key stakeholder, again, no surprise, but interesting to see how the shortcomings were ranked. The valleys of death, I've summarized some aspects on this. Slightly favorable overall global RD&D environment, which is not too bad a sign, actually. The biggest roadblocks considered institutional and economic. And finally, that was interesting because these were, I think, open answer questions in the end, which is the three main wishes participants could mention for advancing RD&D, more financing, internalized CO2 costs was oftentimes mentioned. There were also relatively many participants from the startup sector, like entrepreneurial sector, and no surprise, reduction of bureaucracy. And with this, I would like to end and thank you for your attention. Be open for questions, or maybe the moderator wants to continue. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for the presentation. So now that we have a bit of a sense of what it takes and what are the needs for new technology in developing settings, I'll now have a distinguished panel who will discuss their experience with that technology transfer. And I ask for your indulgence if I massacre names. Is really involuntary. So I'll ask each of the panelists to please come and take a seat. And that way we can start the discussion. So my first panelist is Moonjung Kang, senior researcher at the National Institute of Green Technology, Korea. She specializes in international collaboration. She actively leads projects in climate technology deployment and shapes global climate policies. Our next panelist is Katja Kammerer, Director, Commissioning Parties Department for Client Liaison and Business Development at GIZ, where she coordinates institutional relationship with German public sector commissioners, the European Union, international donors, private sector partners, and the Green Climate Fund. Our next panelist is Ms. Eldana Jumalieva, coordinator for a support program from the Division of Country Programming at the Green Climate Fund. She specifically looks over for country programming strategies and policy products, including the Readiness and Preparatory Support Program at GCF. We then have Mr. Ron Binyoff, International Program Manager at the NREL, the Laboratory Program Manager for International Programs at the National Renewable Energy Laboratory, and he's also the Executive Director of the Net Zero World Initiative. In this capacity, he leads the NREL Science and Technology and Analysis Corporation in support of US government programs and with research institutes, governments, international agencies, foundations, and other partners around the world. Finally, we have Giriraf Amarnak, hope I said that right, Principal Researcher for the Disaster Risk, well, okay, you recognized yourself, so that was okay. So, Disaster Risk Management and Climate Resilience and Research Group Leader on Water Risk to Development and Resilience at the International Water Management Institute in Colombo, Sri Lanka, where he has 20 years of experience of identifying, managing, and scaling climate resilience on adaptation projects and programs in partnership with governments, NGOs, communities, and the private sector. So welcome to our distinguished panelists. I will also sit. There's also And so, I'm very glad to have all of you here, and I do have specific questions with regards to the various sectors in which you are applying climate technology. So I will start on the government side with the Research Institute of Korea. My question is this one. The Paris Agreement considers collaborative approaches to climate technology research and development as a way to foster innovation. Can you give us an example from your country or from your organization's perspective? What are the ways and examples to enable this process? What are some practical activities that you provide as an example of collaborative research and development? And what are the lessons learned that you have come up with?
Thank you very much for your question. Our institution, NIGT, has been supported Korean Ministry of Science and ICT of the Korean government in initiating various international technology collaboration in the field of climate change. And since 2016, we supported like over 10 RD&D collaborations with developing countries. And I want to share two cases today of the collaborative RD&D. The first case was facilitated by the CTCN pro bono TA, and this was conducted by the Gwangju Institute of Science and Technology in Korea. And the university in Korea, this university in Korea, conducted small-scale demonstrations in Cambodia and Myanmar by using gravity-driven membrane technology to supply drinking water to the rural communities in Cambodia and Myanmar. And the projects successfully showcased the potentials of the water supply and carbon credits. And the interesting thing is a graduate from this university who is Cambodian, now a university professor in his home country, participated in the collaborative RD&D. And the researchers in Korea were in charge of project design, management, monitoring, and evaluation, and facility fabrication, delivery, reagent supply, consultation, and so on. And the researchers in Cambodia, they were in charge of local operation, installation, and pre- and post-testing of the water quality and inspections of the health improvement and so on. So they collaborated very well. And the main success factor of this collaboration was the good understanding of the local conditions by the on-site local experts. So this case highlights the importance of using well-established local networks. The second case is was also carried out and supported by the CTCN pro bono TA. And in Belgrade, Serbia, in 2019, and a feasibility study was carried out in Serbia on the district heating system. And they, at the end of this project, the projects identify technology options for the district heating system, and they highlighted the importance of the smart energy management, efficient energy management system. And based on these findings, the follow-up fund was used to for the subsequent project. So this case highlights how the CTCN TA can grow into the collaborative RD&D in the follow-up project. So in the follow-up project, there was also demonstration on the smart metering, and they included also elements of the capacity building of the local system operators as well as stakeholders on the long-term district heating networks and so on. So the success factor could be that our institution and Korean government tracked the results of the previous projects and linked to the next fund for continuous funding. And it was not easy, but it was very helpful to sustain the impact of the project. So, but advancing collaborative RD&D is not always easy. There is a big gap between the CTCN TA and the larger project funding, ODA funds or R&D funds. Therefore, I want to highlight 3 points to conclude my response. The first is we have to utilize the local networks to make the project successful, to make collaborative RD&D successful in a very short time frame. And second, we have to utilize the follow-up funds to further carry out collaborative RD&D. And three is the third one is we have to expand the mid-sized fund to fill the gap between TA and larger size ODA or R&D fund. So the mid-sized RD&D activities can carry out more and more in the future. Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you. That's a good summary. So to utilize more local network, to utilize fellow funds, and to expand funds to fill in the gaps that are existing right now in the funding circle. Okay, I now then go to the support providers. So Kecha from GIZ and Eldana from the GCF. My question is this one for you. If you can present to us practical activities for collaborative RD&D that you can share, and also what are the enablers or the enabling environment that allowed you to have that collaborative research and development? Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you so much. It's a great pleasure for me to be here representing GIZ at this distinguished panel. And what Mun Young just said resonates a lot with me and with us, utilizing a local network and local knowledge for this very important task. So for German government cooperation, the Green Digital Nexus is indeed a priority. And to give you one single example, the CO2 emissions of data centers are enormous, and they're consuming as much as entire nations. So, for example, South Africa. But way beyond this one aspect, we must leverage a just transition, and Germany really stands for the J in just transition. So just, meaning that it really has to lead towards a sustainable and digital future for all. So digital innovations such as AI, artificial intelligence offer important opportunities, we all know that, but also increasingly this is seen for climate action. However, the potential of those technologies and respective data first needs to be realized, and risks, of course, have to be managed. And on behalf of the German government, GIZ therefore pilots and implements various projects with our partners to advance the digital and green transformation globally. And I would like to give you some examples here. And I brought you 3 project examples. So the first is if we look at determining the status quo and ambition level of national determined contributions, the NDCs. This is difficult for a lot of countries, and countries need better climate data. So the BMZ Data Economy Program, BMZ, that is our German Ministry for Economic Cooperation and Development, is working, for example, with the South African Department of Forestry and Fisheries and the Presidential Climate Commission to make progress towards achieving the South African NDCs, in this case, in a more transparent and also more results-oriented way. And as experience has shown here, the countries in the global south tend to lack solid climate data, and it's difficult then to determine whether governments actually meet the agreed upon climate targets. So there's a need for a digital M&E system, and this will facilitate the linking of climate data between key actors such as ministries, NGOs, and SMEs. And as we know, we need the contributions on all levels. It's key to really know where we're heading and what has been achieved so far. And this then enables the transparent traceability of CO2 emissions within different sectors along the entire value chain of a given product, for example. And such data infrastructure and use of innovations is also critical to enhance the transparency of carbon markets. Carbon markets, that is something that has been widely discussed here at COP. And it can be a key driver for sustainable climate finance, which is also very important to us. So we're very happy to have started already to expand this program from South Africa to Senegal, and we hope to scale it up further. Then the second example I brought to you is the potential of digital innovations, and here the decoupling of digitalization and emissions. So to unleash the full impact of digital technology, we're exchanging knowledge and best practice with like-minded partners, such as within the World Bank's Digital Development Partnership. And together we strive towards closing the digital divides in a social and sustainable way, and to learn jointly on how to develop large-scale and scale digital solutions with climate-positive impacts, and this on a global scale. And a successful example for reducing emissions of the ICT sector, and this is actually has been carried out with the World Bank and the ITU, is the Practitioner's Guide for Green Data Centers. And these guidelines by now have been applied to 11 World Bank financed digital development projects in partner countries so far. And as we all know, data centers consume a lot of energy. And so for the first time, the countries are obtaining financial and technical assistance focusing on the greening of their data centers. And it's quite an important milestone, as data centers are a part of modern digital economies, physical infrastructure, so they're needed, they will be expanded. And it's important to ensure that they're as green as possible, so ideally climate neutral. And that's a major step for the green digital transition in partner countries. And this here shows also our approach of trial and errors. We call it working in sandboxes, yeah? Because when scaling up what worked in one setting, we know that we have to adapt it to another local context. Yeah? So it's always this adaptation that needs to be done. We can learn from successful country pilots across sectors, like as diverse as agriculture, transport, energy, or biodiversity. We could, for example, open data platforms for urban mobility, digital public infrastructure to prevent deforestation, or support evidence-based policy decision to protect high carbon stock forests. So all of these are global solutions, and we think that we can contribute here significantly. And the third example I brought to you is, I think, very relevant here in the context of the discussions at COP. It's our work on climate risks and loss and damage. We all know that the Loss and Damage Fund has been launched here at the beginning of COP, and I'm very happy that my government also contributed an initial pledge of $100 million for this. Many other countries have joined in. This is a very important step. And as we all know, the partner countries in the global South are disproportionately affected by the severity of climate change impacts. However, not only do they tend to lack resources for climate impact adaptation, but it's also the global North that is causing most of these effects in the first place. And therefore, we at GIZ believe that it's our responsibility to support the partners as much as we can. And hereby, we also want to make use of digital solutions and of data, of course. So prior to any adaptation measures that are being designed, we think that countries need an overview on the risks they are exposed to, which relies on climate data. So it should be based on evidence. For example, we co-drafted the Climate Risk Sourcebook that guides partner countries and supports building reliable climate databases on behalf of BMZ, our Ministry for Economic Cooperation and Development. And there's this BMZ initiative, Fair Forward, that we support. And here we try to make use of the benefits of AI technology and make it available also to people who suffer most from climate change. And so here we use remote sensing and AI, and this can be used to comprehensively collect data and analyze the yield estimates of, for example, projected crop failures. Yeah? So that's a great help in agriculture. And smallholder farmers in rural areas of Kenya, for example, are already benefiting from the solution, as well as policymakers with preventive climate change action recommendations for food security on the local level. And so what we learned from these 3 pilots, the examples I presented to you are that collaboration and enhanced collaboration on climate-related technology needs, it's crucial to work in a multi-stakeholder network. And this is very much very much our approach to development cooperation as such. And we need to work on different levels. Yeah? So at GIZ, we collaborate with partners on the international, on the regional, and on the local level. And I would like to emphasize the need of the local level to support a truly people-centered digital transformation. So it should be human-centered, people should be at the core. And I think if we look at, for example, the digital transformation centers, this is a structure that we work with in many countries. They are a proven concept to support digital ecosystems in a very self-determined digital transformation. And they act as a hub for all actors. So all the stakeholders are invited here to join the entire digital ecosystem on the local level, including governments, companies, civil society, and combine the innovative capacity, technical expertise, then of course the IT knowledge, the research, and the startup spirit. And this is something that proves to be quite successful because it also creates a certain spirit of collaboration at a certain place in a country where people know this is where I go if I want to discuss these matters and if I want to make my voice heard and want to bring in certain points that I want to raise. And this is maybe also something where when I was listening to the presentation on the survey that struck my mind, if stumbling blocks that are identified are mostly on the institutional level and on the economic level, I think these locations, these hubs, these places where people come together to discuss all these aspects are key to overcome those stumbling blocks, and hopefully we can contribute to that. So we think that depending on the local needs, partners can actually choose to empower digital ecosystems and to build systems that support their NDC monitoring and evaluation, so it's driven by them, or to pilot also digital solutions that empower local and indigenous communities. And we heard that before, leave no one behind, but we also have to make that work. We have to make the step towards implementation, and that's important, and so we need really proper action that is suitable. We do that, for example, in our Data Transformation Center in Ecuador. That's another good example. And to participate in global value chains by ensuring deforestation-free products. Yeah? And my colleague from Ecuador is nodding as she knows the example. So making sure that actually products from Ecuador that are deforestation-free, they come to the shelves of supermarkets in Europe and elsewhere in the world. So I think these are very good and tangible examples how this can work and the contribution that can make to sustainable development. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Katja. So, Eldana, what would be then your practical example of collaborative research and development and the enablers that you believe are essential to have a successful collaboration?
Sure. Thank you for the question, and thank you for having us here at GCF at this esteemed panel, and thanks for the rich presentation. I'm very happy that GCF, as the partnership-based organization, works with GIZ that builds so much technology on the ground. I just wanted to mention, first of all, that technology transfer is part of our mandate. So in our governing instrument, there's a provision for GCF to support not only the development, but also the transfer of technology. We had, since 2016, been mandated by UNFCCC as well to find ways to provide that support. And since then, we have been, again, commissioned by our board as the Secretariat to evaluate and produce options for technology collaborative research and development. Now, we have advanced in the past 3 years through several board decisions and have assessed various options. We have now identified one of the modalities under GCF that is going to look at the strengthening and creation of intermediary innovation system builders. So this implies working with climate technology entrepreneurs, startups and SMEs, but also public innovation and research institutes. I believe that at the moment the decision is going to the board, to the next board of GCF, which is going to take place in the first quarter, with a specific proposal to support climate technology incubators and accelerators. Okay. So that is done together with UNFCCC Secretariat, but we also work in quite an extensive partnership on making sure that incubators and accelerators do take place in action. Just to give you examples of a few proposals that we funded. And also our readiness portfolio, we have a readiness and preparatory program. Mm-hmm. So I'll just list a few very quick examples. On the readiness side, which is the capacity building program, we do fund activities such as technology needs assessment and action plans. We've done quite a bit in Cambodia. And then looking on at the climate technology deployment roadmaps. In Gabon and Cameroon, we've done the same work. In Nauru, we've had a look at the adaptation-specific technology development and transfer. And then in Paraguay, we also had a look at the technical guidance and support to conduct a technical needs assessment. So we work with governments quite a bit in making sure that there's an appropriate assessment that precedes the actual transfer of knowledge. And noteworthy, we have a few regional grants where we have enacted knowledge sharing. In Latin America, we've had a look at the advancing regional approach to e-mobility. And there are quite a few regional projects supported through the readiness resources. E-mobility and adaptation are probably the two themes that we are evidencing the most demand for readiness resources. And similarly, for mainstream funding from GCF, we've had about 6 major funded proposals all across Africa and LATAM, and primarily also e-mobility and adaptation technologies. Just to summarize our portfolio, in terms of the capacity building support, it equals to 5.7 million, and on the funded proposals is around 415 million, which is drop in the option in the ocean if you look at the sort of $500 million capacity building program that have been advanced in the last 8 years, and 12.8 billion of funding that GCF is currently engaged in. So I think there's a lot to be done more. And hopefully under the new readiness strategy, which has been approved in October, and which is going to come into effect next year from 1st of April, we have specific objectives to work with governments on strategic frameworks including on the ones that would create enabling environment for research and development. But also the majority of funding under the capacity building would go into the pipeline development, but also concrete research and development solutions that are directly linked to the projects. We will, under the, that's the third objective, knowledge management and sharing, work on advancing peer-to-peer learning. And under that, there's a lot to be done on knowledge, on technology transfer. We work predominantly in the developing countries where it is not so much the development of the technologies, but it's the transfer bit that is critical for our beneficiaries. So I think in the years to come, in the 4 years to come, for which the readiness strategy is approved, we will be paying specific attention to technology transfer as South-South collaboration, but also North-South collaboration on the transfer of cost-efficient and effective technologies. With that, I'd probably pass on the mic, aware that we have other panelists to cover in the half an hour that we have left.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for these answers and sharing with us how GCF is assisting in the technology transfer and building capacity for the countries that are in need to be able to absorb that technology and implement it at large scale. So now I have questions for the project implementers, and I'll ask them to be brief since time is not on our side. So to Ron and Giriraj, got it right? If you can explain to us or suggest an ideal collaborative research and development implementation process and role related to the stakeholders, and that can maybe help us round off a little bit all the parameters from all the different stakeholders that are involved in technology transfer.
Let me
Yes,
start.
go ahead.
Yep.
You can go ahead, Ron.
Well, first, thank you. It's an honor to be here and appreciate the opportunity to speak. Just a quick word about the National Renewable Energy Lab, in case you haven't heard, is one of the Department of Energy laboratories, one of 17, but the only lab that's dedicated to the full suite of renewable energy and energy efficiency technologies. Nearly 4,000 employees doing research across all the technologies and the enabling technologies such as energy storage. And we work, and we take very seriously our commitment to work with developing countries to support technology collaboration and the lifting up of capacity by countries in all regions to develop endogenous technologies and capacity. We work with countries through 5 main mechanisms. One are roadmaps to develop strategies for accelerating clean energy technology innovation. So we're working with Indonesia right now on a roadmap to use nickel for battery manufacturing and to clean the nickel production process, which right now is all coal-based, and there's opportunities for much cleaner production and for Indonesia to get much more value from their nickel rather than exporting it by actually producing batteries. So that's one example, and there we're bringing together the government, the industry, university stakeholders. Second is to work on specific research portfolios in countries in specific technical areas of interest and to have demonstration projects. So in India, we had it ended now, but a long-standing solar energy research program. We brought our lab together with the research institutes in India to work on joint science, data sharing, and then demonstration projects. And we have similar work on battery energy storage, starting a new effort in Mauritania, for example, on long-duration energy storage to support green steel technologies. Standards testing and certification is the third. It's absolutely critical that countries in all regions have ability to develop localized performance standards and testing and certification of technologies to ensure that high-performing technologies are entering the market and that consumers are happy with the performance of the technology, because nothing kills the market more than some bad experiences, batteries lighting on fire. That's really critical, and that involves working with standard bodies, the government institutions. Incubators are really key. There was reference to supporting entrepreneurs. A big part of our work in the US in our laboratory is not just doing the research, but providing the technical de-risking, business plan, and technical coaching to entrepreneurs. And we advise other countries, India and South Africa, for example, in developing incubator programs, which are essential to ensure that the technology gets commercialized and there's a business community that can adapt them. And then workforce development, and this really speaks to the need to train the next generation of engineers and analysts and to provide ongoing continuing education for current professionals. So there we're working closely with universities and community colleges, and really with an emphasis on shared open curriculum that countries can adapt, the universities can adapt, and a big effort as well on gender equity, special programs to lift up the skills and engagement of women in these countries. And then finally, I'll just point out that holistic collaborative programs that bring together all of these elements in a public-private cooperation model are absolutely essential. We run something called the Global Power System Transformation Consortium, which is an example of an approach where we're working with CEOs of system operators and utilities around the world, developed and developing countries, on the technologies and solutions to manage high amounts of variable renewable energy. So grid forming inverters, advanced control rooms, stability tools, and we're working together. Everybody, the physics of the power systems are the same around the world. So by bringing together peers, these power utilities who all have the same challenges, we're able to solve problems together much more quickly, and we're able to build capacity in developing countries who are talking to their counterparts, the California operator, the UK operator, Australia, India talking to Indonesia, et cetera. So I really want to emphasize the importance of such collaborative consortium. The best consortium that was announced here, battery energy storage, and this responds to kind of the demand that you noted, Peter, is another great example of a holistic approach, public-private approach, to really focus in on key sectors and developing solutions together. Thank you.
Oh, very, very good. So I'm getting working with networks, peers to solve issues faster, working research portfolios, working on standards, incubators. These are all aspects in a successful collaboration. Perfect. Gigi Rav.
Thank you, Chair. I hope I'm audible. It's difficult to say in the end if all the speakers have already summarized many important points. But I would go with some of the process international water management is adapting. Specifically, when you come to events like COP28, the water is now getting increasingly picked up by the member states in terms of recognizing the improvement of water management. That is where the technologies becomes more vital. We are talking about reuse of wastewaters. We are talking about improving water use efficiency, coming up with a standard or a global standards or a golden standards on the water metrics, measuring the indicators. So there are a lot of such parameters are increasingly being recognized. What we are seeing here is for ideal collaboration on research, development, and demonstration. We looked at various over the years. What happens is many of the research or the technology we bring are more supply-driven solutions rather than coming up with a clear need assessment from the partners itself. And often when we are putting up any funding, we are also seeing that many of the fundings are very silo-driven. It's not a multi-stakeholder driven process. Ministries will look at silos rather than looking at a transformative thinking around land, water, and food system. How does these technologies will certainly embed? We also see really there is a wider need of cutting-edge technologies, while many of the technologies exist, but it never becomes sustainable because it is not local-driven process. It is not sustainable over the years, how this cutting-edge technology will become relevant. but also we need to improve the existing one. If you go to, like UNDRR has developed several years back called a disinventor database. Many countries are using that platform, but it's in order to adapt some new technologies to adapt, it takes a lot of challenges to update the new technology and then ensure that the new technologies like AI-enabled generative AI tools can also be used. But it takes a lot of time and process, but we need to quickly have to adapt because we don't have much time when it comes to climate change. And then we see technologies are coming up with a lot of process, coordination, collaboration. So we need to look at how we facilitate that process. I would give off certain examples at the end of my point. And also many of the technologies, when we see it might meet certain requirement, it may not really demonstrate the full value benefits of transforming the communities itself. Sometimes you will have an early warning system that might have produced an information at a national level. But how do you translate early warning to early action, early finance, making sure that the community buy-in is already there. So how do we make sure that we demonstrate the solution that are cross-scale, multi-level, multi-sectoral coordination as well. And rising awareness really, because technology is the only one that can also bring co-benefits, synergies and partnership. We need to make sure that how we look at these rising awareness on the benefits of these climate technologies like solar energy, wind energy, while equally we need to look at also the adaptation aspects as well. And projects are mostly globally, if you see, most of these investments are project-based. We don't really see anything that is a sustainable programs over 15 to 20 years in time. So I would give of one particular example. We have been working now in 6 to 7 continents, what is called is the Climate Smart Governance Dashboard. It's a global facilitation planning tool we have developed. It was just launched in early October in government of Zambia. Tomorrow we are launching in the Sri Lanka Pavilion. What it does is it looks at all the ministries, all the line department, all the district level agencies. They are coming up what we call is a district investment portfolio planning. So this planning tool provides sectoral what next they are supposed to do in the next 5 years across all sector. And then they are looking at how the climate change is going to respond to those prioritizations. So we have this facilitation planning tool, and importantly, it is also getting into a lot of best practices of climate adaptation, bringing into an M&E tool. It also has a tool that facilitates the investment portfolio planning in terms of tourism, in terms of energy. So we are developing this, some of these tools. I believe the CTCN and other organizations can look into and adapt this so that what we are doing is just a couple of countries. We would like to, the UN and other agencies to scale up these potentials, including GCF and others. So I'll submit here, but given the limited time, but happy to respond to any other question. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. So I'm getting that government need to look at solving an issue at a nexus level, right? With different types of government sectors that come in together to then get a technology that will serve all of their needs and purpose rather than doing it in silos. That's a very interesting outlook to do it in a more collaborative way, really at governmental level. So we are running out of time, unfortunately. We have about 13 minutes left, and I would like for the TEC chair, Stig, to come in and give the closing remarks. But before that, I will invite us to do the elevator pitch exercise where you have a question that you can ask, elevator pitch, so literally 10 seconds. And the panelists will also go into the challenge of answering that question through elevator pitch, which is about 10 seconds. We're going up one floor. So if you do have a question, please do raise your hand and address it to the panelists that you would like to have the question to. Stig, okay. You're the first one of the exercise.
Yeah, which failure taught you the most?
Which failure?
Taught you the most.
Okay, so what's the biggest, which failure gave you the biggest lesson? Yes. To each panelist, there we go. That would be a great elevator pitch answer. So what was the biggest failure that gave you the biggest lesson in terms of that technology transfer?
Biggest lesson would be easier. Biggest lesson is that our experience showed that the developed countries and developing countries in the collaborative RD&D, they have differing expectations. And developed countries mostly want to validate their technologies through the collaborative RD&D and replicate these validated technologies in the other countries and expand the market and so on. They want to harness this opportunity, but the developing countries want to supplement their capabilities through the collaborative RD&D. And because of these differing expectations, it is critical to find out the mutually satisfactory areas and technology options and collaboration method formats are very critical, and it is also very, very hard to find out the areas of mutual interest. Yeah.
Okay, very good. Ms. Aldana?
I'll be very, very quick, but there are many. One size fits all is a very hard lesson learned by us, particularly working in such various regions and also developing the nexus of developing and developed countries. Crowding out private sector is another one, where we, being a public finance institution, particularly in R&D and transfer of R&D, probably overdo some of the work, and also, well, through our financing, we do have a tendency of perhaps crowding out the private capital, but also private ideas and private seed. So we definitely learned that lesson the hard way, and we'll definitely do things differently going forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Ron, what would be your answer to your biggest failure or biggest lesson from that?
Yeah, not paying attention to the innovation ecosystem. 10 seconds.
Okay, half a floor. And Giriraj, what would be your
So I see
answer
the failures of farmers' welfare or the community's income is not increased even the last 60, 70 years itself is one of the lessons we are learning. How do we make technologies that are accessible, to make sure that they are equitable, they are accessible, to make sure that these technologies make their, in terms of poverty targets and many of the things we are talking about can be addressed through that.
So making it at the local level, trickling it down all the way down. Excellent. Well, I really want us to give a warm applause to our panelists for the discussion and having shared their thoughts on research and development. And I will ask Stig, the tech chair, to come and give the closing remarks. You can go to the big stage, yes. And you are all excused. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you all. This has been very interesting, and thank you all to the panelists